Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to AEW Dynamite March 18th, 2020 review. And, folks, this episode was great. I mean, not great. It was good, especially with no crowd. They put a lot of effort and emphasis behind this show. They tried to provide a ton of entertainment, some good wrestling, and storyline progression as well. We saw at least about 4 or 5 matches on this card. We saw a great build. We saw an introduction of 2 not megastars, but 2 stars that working in AEW could be even more than what they were in WWE. That's Luke Harper, who's now called Brody Lee, and Matt Hardy. The broken Matt Hardy character, no longer the regular Matt Hardy, which, thank God, does not exist anymore. Because the broken Matt Hardy is what helped Matt Hardy get over as a wrestling character, and this is no different. I have to admit, guys, if they had a crowd for this show, this would have been unbelievable. This show had really great build, and it had no audience. That's pretty fucking sad, and that's just because of this virus which nobody has control over. And quite frankly, I give a lot of credit to AEW. They have a lot of heart, they have a lot of care for their workers, and they care about the audience. They are providing a show with no audience and giving us something worth watching. You're not going to be getting an NXT review from me tomorrow because there was no show. My friend told me that NXT is not putting on a show. I checked it out and they weren't. They were just showing highlights and the kind of hyping up the matches that were supposed to be on the NXT TakeOver show, and instead we're not getting that at all anyway. I will say this. AEW's got 100% of my attention and a lot of my respect. They did something that WWE is not doing, that's producing a show for people to be interested in watching. And that's pretty sad by WWE because they have a big event that's coming up. And they're also going to be providing 2 WrestleManias in one weekend. One on April 4th and one on April 5th. I will say this, guys. AEW's got it all over WWE right now. That's pretty sad and pathetic. I mean, it's like as if NXT is laying down and dying for AEW. Hey, by all means, you're making it easy on me. I don't have to watch so much fucking content. So, whatever. I really don't care. This company is... WWE's convinced me that I shouldn't give a shit about what they're fucking producing on TV. Really. I don't. AEW came on the show starting things off with Cody Rhodes. Cody mentions Matt Jackson and says he needs him to put aside his anger towards Adam Page. Speaking of whom, Cody says he is tired of putting over Hangman Page. He constantly calls him the best performer in the Elite. He thought he'd be the first AEW champion, but he lost to Chris Jericho. But guess what? So did he, and it's time for Page to get over it. So Cody's kind of initiating that the idea of him becoming an alcoholic or having a drinking problem at this point is because he's upset with himself for not winning the AEW title for the first time. So that's a very good point and a good reason to point out why he's developed a drinking problem and why he seems so angry and frustrated. As for Kenny Omega, He's probably his most unique friend. He says the two of them don't always get along, and they'll probably argue who's number one until someone passes them by. But he needs him to be his very best. In all, he needs the elite to be elite. Kenny and Matt come down to the ring at this point. Kenny says normally you'd be speaking to the arena full of people, but tonight they're just friends talking to friends. He says him and Cody have been at each other's throats, but here they are, with the world falling down around them, unsure if they'll even have a Dynamite next week. But if it's up to him, he wants to go out like they came in. Which, by the way, guys, like I just said, they provided that to us tonight. Matt grabs the microphone and says he appreciates Cody's call to arms, but it's just the three of them in an empty arena. His brother, he couldn't make it, and he asks, "Where's Paige?" Hangman comes out onto the stage, and Jackson says he knows things have been strange, and he's not saying they have to fix it tonight, but he's asking him if he'll stand with the elite. Hangman Page holds up a glass of whiskey and nods before walking away, acknowledging, saying that he's all for it. Omega says it's hard to do a show without fans, but the world needs some positivity right now, which is damn true in most cases in this situation, because this has just been downright fucking depressing. So it's time to hit the lights and hit the pyro and get Dynamite underway. And folks, I will go on record and say this. They acted as if they have nothing going on in the world right now. Despite the fact there was no people in the audience, they acted like there was nothing going on. Like this was just like what it's always is. A show. And they gave it their all in this fucking episode. I am going on record, maybe even saying this is probably based on the fact that there is no audience, there is no way, there's a high epidemical issue going on right now with the world's health and safety of other people. They probably put on the best fucking show possible they could have with the limited capability of what they could have done. I think this show was fucking great. Based on the adversity that they have to deal with the fact that there's no fucking crowd. Because that's one of the key points to a wrestling show is the crowd. Without the crowd, there is no show. And this proves it. Raw and SmackDown proved it. WrestleMania is going to definitely prove it. WrestleMania may have had audiences being very quiet, but sometimes they got vocal during those shows. You're going to get none of that in both shows. And tonight, without the wrestlers pretending to be the fans, we wouldn't have had any reaction whatsoever. And there was like 10 people around the ring and pretending to be part of the audience. It was downright crazy. First match that kicked off the show was the Best Friends and the Lucha Brothers. This match was pretty decent. It was okay. A good way of kicking off the match, the show with a tag team matchup that was pretty solid. Lucha Brothers, though, win this match. Later on, it was announced that the Best Friends won a match with the Lucha Brothers next week in a street fight. They're still going through with the Blood and Guts match, which should be pretty interesting, seeing how they put that whole setup together with 2 rings in there, with the arena not being that big of a place at all. But bottom line, this should be a very interesting show next week. They're going to have a parking lot street fight and a Blood and Guts War Games match. I really like how this show's developing. Next match after that was Penelope Ford versus Riho, Chris Statlander, and Hikaru Shida, this match was actually okay, I guess. Again, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the women's wrestling in AEW, so I don't particularly care for them that much. We did have a mention of Colt Cabana with Tony Schiavone interviewing him behind the barricade. There was a little friction between Kip Sabian, who's actually the boyfriend of Penelope Ford, and it looks like they might be developing a matchup between those two characters. And then earlier today we saw a video of Jon Moxley leaving the building because he wasn't allowed to compete. He says he doesn't care about being medically cleared. He's never been fit to compete. He's going to take a drive and blow off some steam, which he had a very nice car, which is what the Inner Circle gave to him. But he'll always be in the Inner Circle's blind spot. He gets into the car that Chris Jericho gave him and drives off. And that's pretty much that. Then the next match was the Butcher and the Blade versus the Jurassic Express with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. This match was alright too. I mean, none of these matches were super great. They were average. I mean, I don't blame them putting on an average matches, but at least give me a fucking match to watch. I mean, that's what we're here to watch, wrestling. Want to see physical interaction, not just talking. This isn't a talk show. This is a wrestling show. The promos are meant to help build the storylines and elevate them, but at the end of the day, what we're here to watch is wrestling. That's the point. But yeah, another decent, okay tag team matchup. And, you know, Jurassic Express picks up the victory here and gets the win. We did see a little interaction with MJF by the stands and so forth, and with the Butcher and the Blade giving them some money to take out the Jurassic Express, which I thought was pretty nice. I thought it was very consistent to continue with what they've been doing. And then the Dark Order shows up. And they got Evil Uno and Stu Grayson about to unleash the Exalted One. When that was about to happen, Christopher Daniels comes out of nowhere, said that there is no Exalted One. But then all of a sudden there's a promo video. Promo video being of Luke Harper revealing himself as Brody Lee and the Exalted One. And I could only imagine what it would have been like if there was an actual crowd to this show. This was unbelievable. I really can't believe what I saw. Seeing Brody Lee, formerly known as Luke Harper, showing up on the show, and I could only imagine what the crowd would have been like if they actually had a crowd. I think it would have been fucking off the hook. At that point, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian were attacked after they blacked out the lights, turned the lights back on, and Brody Lee was in the middle of the ring beating the shit out of both of them. And that was pretty much that. Then we go ahead and go to Jake Roberts and Lance Archer with Tony Schiavone. Roberts says that Cody has disrespected them, and as a result, this is personal now. We then see a video of Archer wrestling nobodies in the backyard with a dwarf announcer. Somehow that was meant to be impressive, which honestly I think that was the worst segment on this entire show. It didn't help, in my opinion. Lance Archer looked very intimidating. It would have worked out a lot better if he was beating the shit out of a bunch of known wrestlers on their roster and looking dominant against them. But here it just looks silly and absolutely ridiculous. I didn't particularly like this. I didn't think it was very... it didn't come across well to me. I mean, it was different. I will admit that. It looked somewhat similar to what the Hardy Boys were doing in TNA with the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. But at the end of the day, was it really needed? Did they have to do any of this? Couldn't they saved him for a matchup on national television next week and maybe have him perform during the Blood and Guts show and compete against somebody that people are aware of and have him defeat them? I mean, that would have made more sense to me. But hey, that's just my opinion. Besides that, next week, Luchasaurus will face Wardlow in a lumberjack match. That should be a very interesting matchup. I think that Wardlow should definitely pick up this victory here at this point. The lumberjack match, I don't know how well that's going to go over. I'm not particularly fond of lumberjack matches at all as I've gotten older. I've noticed that they are a load of crap and they really don't do much of anything. But I am noticing a lot of, gimmick matches. It feels more like a pay-per-view type of pay-per-view type show for 2 hours. So I do appreciate that. And, yeah. So we get the main event. It's a 6-man tag team match with the Inner Circle, consisted of the Pride and Powerful of Santana Ortiz with Jake Hager versus the Elite, which is Matt Jackson, Cody, and Hangman Page. This match, I think, was the best match on the card. It definitely sucked up a lot of time on the show. Jericho is great on commentary, by the way. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, I mean, they just provided a very, very long matchup that went 30 minutes almost, I believe. And they just provided a good, solid 6-man tag team matchup that meant something. It meant the winner gets the upper hand at Blood and Guts War Games match. And the Inner Circle was the ones that actually win this match. I believe that was Santana who actually picks up the hold here. Santana, he goes ahead and does a roll-up pin on Jackson and gets the 1, 2, 3. Hager actually pulls Hangman Page from doing the Meltzer driver with Matt Jackson, which would have been fucking awesome if they could have pulled that one off. I think that would have been an awesome spot. But they did a very clean ending to this. The Inner Circle did not cheat. There was no outside interferences. Nothing. Anyone that really got involved with Hangman Page was actually, Hager was actually part of this match. So, I mean, nothing really became... I mean, like, there was some kind of interactions from an outside interference, but it was nothing that determined the ending factor or the win to this match. So, at the end of the day, Inner Circle did technically win cleanly. But at this point, they put on a good show. And they had no crowd. They announced Matt Hardy as the fill-in guy for Nick Jackson. And Kenny Omega will be cleared to wrestle for Blood and Guts next week. So they have their 5 men for Elite. I think this is going to be an awesome show. Despite the fact there is no audience, there is no feel to the show, they are at least trying. NXT's not doing anything. They did nothing tonight. And WWE's Raw and SmackDown shows have done nothing, and they're worse than they are with a crowd. So that goes to show one thing. WWE doesn't give a flying fuck about their storylines, but yet they couldn't postpone their WrestleMania event. Very funny shit, people. Very funny. Anyway, guys, hit the like button if you like this video. leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you on your comments. And hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. And I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great night, guys. Bye. Stay safe, by the way. Bye.